Sometimes as a leader, when you go against the decisions of the court that is governing this country, it just makes me wonder, are you a leader or are you a puppet? And I think at this point, it's a point where the president should be really, really careful in not offending someone like Raila and his brigade, because I think the president is really banking on the support of Raila come 2027 for him to be re-elected. Now, a 3-judge bench that comprised of Justice John Chigiti, Lawrence Mugambi and Jairus Ngaah had said that Azimio is the majority coalition in the National Assembly. But as of yesterday, if I'm not wrong, the Speaker of the National Assembly, that is Moses Wetangula, went against that decision and said that Kenya Kwanza is indeed the majority coalition in the National Assembly. And if I may quote what Millie Odhiambo said, is that as Azimio, we very respectfully disagree with your communication. As Azimio, we are going to take further action, Odhiambo stated. And I had another video of one of the Azimio MPs saying that they'll visit Rigathi in Wamunyoro. You see, things are boiling nicely as we head into 2027. And these are the reasons why, if the president is not really careful, he might be a one-term president. There's so many people in my comment are telling me that the president can go for another term. I think there is also room for him not to go for another term, because if Raila does not get the AU chairmanship, remember the francophone countries are not going to vote for Raila. They cannot vote for a non-French speaking person to represent them in the AU. Because I once attended a COMESA meeting in Mombasa, and I realized that so many countries there were speaking French, so there was need to have a translator to translate this French to the East African countries. And these francophone countries are going to vote for someone who is speaking French, and that favors the Djibouti candidate. So if Raila loses the AU chairmanship this Saturday, and Moses Wetangula has decided to go against the court orders, and remember, yesterday there was a meeting, not unless it didn't happen, but Kalonzo Musyoka said that yesterday, which was on Wednesday, he was to meet Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta and Raila Odinga for a strategic meeting in line with the court declaration that Azimio is the majority coalition. Anyway, we'll see how that unfolds. But today, I want us to look into what Kenyans have been calling for, because according to a website of the ICC, so many Kenyans have been calling the ICC, or the International Criminal Court, to come and investigate Kenya's government. Now, can ICC come and investigate this government? If it is to come, what is leading them to come, and what are the chances of them coming? That is what I want us to look into today. Ladies and gentlemen, if it's the first time you're encountering this channel, kindly don't hesitate, hit that subscribe button, because here it's all about politics, leadership, civic education, amongst other things. So, once again, Kenyans are in the headlines, but this time round, it's not for a positive reason, literally. Okay, as Kenyans are just calling that the International Criminal Court should come and investigate our own government. And the question is, why are Kenyans doing this? What's happening in our country that makes people think only ICC can bring that justice? So far so good. Even if the court is trying to wake up, we cannot yet trust it fully. So yeah, still we need the ICC. But ladies and gentlemen, by the end of this video, you'll understand the reasons behind these calls by Kenyans, the shocking recent events fueling them, and whether the ICC might actually step in. Remember, the president was once in ICC with the former president, that is Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta, which they won the election. That's a story for another day, cannot get into it. But let's look into this. Number one, Kenya's troubled past with the ICC. If we are to understand why Kenyans are turning to the ICC, let's look at its history, right? Now, after the 2007 post-election violence, the ICC targeted top Kenyan leaders, including Uhuru Kenyatta and William Ruto. Kulkwanga na wasalkwanga, there were 6, okay? And the biggest people whom they targeted was Uhuru Kenyatta and William Ruto, and I think that is what cemented to their good relationship that led to them becoming the government in 2013 and in 2017. Now, the case fell apart due to witness tampering and lack of cooperation that left many Kenyans feeling justice was denied. Now, that is 10 years ago, and a decade later, Kenyans are once again calling on the ICC, but this time their focus is not on Uhuru Kenyatta, but rather is on Ruto's administration. Have things changed since then, or are we back to square one? You know, we know the president his government has been faced with a lot of things which I'm going to highlight to you in a short while that are leading Kenyans to call on ICC. But also, if I'm to go back during that time of the ICC court, people are saying it was William Ruto was tampering with the evidence or was tampering with the eyewitnesses. Some were murdered, some went missing, they have never been found, and the same things are happening during his government, which make me tend to believe that maybe he was having a hand in how those witnesses were disappearing during that time. So what are the things that are catapulting Kenyans to call on ICC to come and investigate its own government? Number one, police brutality during protests. In July 2023, protests erupt against the government's Finance Act, or the Finance Bill, which increased taxes on essential goods, and as always, the police responded with tear gas, live bullets, and brutal force. Remember, we lost the likes of Akina Rex, amongst other people, and even students from universities lost their lives. And reports according to the International Amnesty and Human Rights Watch detail cases of unarmed civilians being shot and killed during these protests. Families demanded for answers, and justice seems to be out of reach within Kenya. Remember, the president even promising that he will cater for the families of those who lost their loved ones. But up to date, there is a family that was complaining that has never happened. And police brutality has been so very in high usage during this government in comparison to the previous government. There is this time we even had civilians with guns in the name that they are policemen, and then a whole IG, Inspector General of Police, says that sometimes police have to wear that. Yes, we know police have to do civilian clothes sometimes, but is it to that extent? Because we have seen CIA, FBI, but they usually have badges, but ours don't have badges. The second thing is targeted abductions and disappearance. You know, there's been a lot of abductions where activists and journalists have been critical on the government. Policies have reportedly been abducted and have mysteriously disappeared. Let's take, for example, the case of Mwangi Wafula, a vocal government critic who was abducted and found days later with severe injuries. And also the likes of the Gen Zs on Twitter who were abducted, amongst other people. Some of the abductees have not been found till date. And also something that is really alarming is also one of the cabinet members, that is Muturi. The son was abducted in this country. So these abductions is what is catapulting Kenyans to call on ICC, because our courts are not able to solve this. Remember also the Ugandan leader of opposition, Biseji, was abducted in this country. So this is the reason as to why Kenyans are calling on ICC to intervene, because we cannot live in a country where you are sleeping today with a fear of what you are speaking tomorrow may lead to a disappearance. When you are disappeared, your family is not sure whether you'll come back alive, come back injured, or come back in a casket. The third thing why Kenyans are calling on ICC, high level of corruption. Now, a recent scandal involving billions in dubious government contracts has wondering if those in power are plundering public resources. The Adani deal. If I'm to mention corruption cases in this country, ni mob. But Kenyans are really furious, seeing this as an economic crime that directly affects their lives. And the ICC, or even whatever Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta said when he was the president, that is the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission of Kenya, is not doing anything about corrupt leaders in this country. So Kenyans have to seek help from ICC to come and... Anyway, though I think corruption is our own problem. It's a tree planted during independence, so we need just to figure it out how to uproot that tree, even if ICC will not come in. Now, what are the political implications of ICC coming to this country? Because as much as the government is really holding into its policies, into its ideas, and Kenyans fighting these policies and ideas, there is that implication it has on this government, that the government is trying to wipe under the table, or to swipe under the table and tend to turn a deaf ear to it. What is this implication? Now, you see, beyond the legal side, what does this call of ICC imply on Kenyan politics? You see, the opposition is using this allegation to rally support. Okay? Kalonzo Musyoka, Rigathi Gachagua. You see, if protests continue and the government response remains heavy-handed, Kenya might be heading towards a deeper political crisis. And this can lead to sanctions or international intervention. You see, it's not just about justice in this country, it's about Kenya's stability and future. So if the president is to take into account his future as a worthy president of this country, then he should be listening more to the cries rather than holding onto his policies. For instance, hii kitu ya majority and minority. Yes, if Azimio the majority does not sit well with the future of so many people in that parliament, the likes of Akina Kimani Ichung'wah, Moses Wetangula, Silvana Sosoro. But you see, trying to do away with Azimio that has so many of rebels is trying to literally dig your own grave. Because once the court declared, it means it's right. Azimio is the majority coalition. If the court decides to say that the appeal that Moses Wetangula is taking to court is null and void and still Azimio, and Azimio decide to impeach Moses Wetangula, how does that sit for the government? So you see, it's not just about politics, it's not just about justice, it's about the stability of this country, because I feel we are heading to another maandamano very soon. So will the ICC listen to Kenyans and investigate the government? That's a question we usually ask ourselves, whether the ICC will come to investigate the government. So you see, the calls are loud, but the process is a little bit complicated. For those wishing the ICC to come, I can just tell you that the process is complicated, and here is why. Without solid evidence and international pressure, the ICC might not act or might face the same obstacles as before. But also one thing is very clear: Kenyans are tired of impunity and they are demanding accountability, whether it's from the ICC or their own leaders. You see, for the ICC to come, it may be really hard, but it can also come when things get out of hand. But also, what do you think? Should the ICC get involved, or should Kenyans find their own path to justice? Let's get the conversation going on the comment section. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more deep dives into Kenyan political landscape. Ladies and gentlemen, that are just my personal views. What's your in the comment section?